This is population dynamics. This is going to be a lot of vocabulary here. At this point, you should pause the lecture and you should just write this all down because there's one more slide with words on it, but the rest of these are basically typing through all of these. And so you should pause the video here quick and then come back. All right, welcome back. So first of all, this whole thing is the study of demography, which is the study of the composition of human populations. It more or less is to say, hey, what's the age makeup of the population? What's the ethnic makeup of the population? It's just basically a bunch of counting that takes place. Now, here are a bunch of the statistics that go into that: crude birth rate and crude death rate, which I will usually just abbreviate CBR and CDR. They are commonly used together. So CBR of the world is currently 20 and the death rate is 8. So 20 and 8 can be a common way that is referred to. So then you take that and you turn that into a percentage. If you take birth rate minus death rate and you subtract it, that will give you the natural rate of increase. You turn it into a percentage. So that is the current world percentage as of 2020 is 1.2%. The population goes up every year. Total fertility rate is the total number of babies a woman can have in her lifetime. It's a good indicator of cultural norms. In other words, the higher the total fertility rate, the more women or more births they have. That usually is regarded as ages 15 to 45 is known as the childbearing years. However, there have been women who have had babies before 15 and after 45. In general, the less babies that they have, the more developed a country is. And also in general, the more developed a country is, and the more women are in the workforce. Doubling time the number of time takes the population double takes 70 divided by the NIR. Obviously, you want that to be lower. Infant mortality rate is also one that is commonly used to look at developmental levels, number of babies who die before the age of 1. That number will never reach 0. There will always be a couple babies that die for whatever reason before the age of 1. Most often complications with childbirth, but again, it's usually a good look at the healthcare system. And then dependency ratio is one very commonly used. This is really a good look at demographics of a country. So if you look over here on this chart, it's old age dependency ratio. In other words, how many people are over the age of 65? And then the youth support is how many people are under the age of 15. So let's go through some of these. Here we go. This is crude birth rate of the world. You should start to look for patterns throughout here. You see patterns that start to develop. So crude birth rate. So this is really high birth rates. You can see your sub-Saharan Africa is in general the highest. Death rates. Okay. Sub-Saharan Africa is still going to be the highest here. Yeah, they have the highest crude birth and the highest crude death. Yeah, they do. But crude death is declining throughout the world. There have been almost no examples of long-term significant increases in crude death rate. Once you hit a certain population, by just the age of your people, your crude death rate is going to increase, but there's been no spikes for other reasons other than really war that have taken place. You'll notice that Eastern Europe is in general pretty high here as well, and that is because, again, the age of their population is super old. Natural rate of increase. So even though they have high crude birth and high crude death in sub-Saharan Africa, it is the highest natural rates of increase. But then if you look here at Eastern Europe, where they also had high rates of natural increase, oh wait, there's no birth rates going on there. And so they're in negative population growth. You can see there are definitely countries in the world where you have negative population growth. Total fertility rates, well, it shouldn't surprise you if they're growing quite rapidly. Well, their total fertility rates are higher as well in sub-Saharan Africa. You can also go back to Eastern Europe, which is the other one I'm highlighting here. Pretty low. Those shouldn't really surprise you. Mortality rates, again, we'll have no country, you'll never be at 0 for this, but you can see here that this is just a good map indicator. It gives you a good look at healthcare systems within a country. It also goes to the fact that if babies aren't, so it works in hand in hand with total fertility rate, because if, yes, these are children per childbearing years per woman. Well, if some of them aren't making it, that will also lead to a higher infant mortality rate. Desire to have kids, higher total child. The reason you have kids in the total fertility rate and with high total fertility rate is to help on the farm. So in general, if that total fertility rate is high, in general, the economy is going to be more tied to agriculture. Elderly support ratio, this is just look up Europe as a whole. So percentage of the population that's over the age of 65. Whoa. And think about some of the impacts that would have on a country. Sorry, forgot about this one. This is just under the age of 15. Again, if your country's growing really fast, you're going to have a large percentage of the population under the age of 15 as well. Now, the last thing here, these are just general things that are true of population and things you should know. Industrialization, urbanization, decreased total fertility rate. This is then the number one factor in terms of how your population is growing is how educated your women are. The more educated the women are, the less likely they are to have kids. That is the number one statistical indicator of how many kids are going to be born in a country. Access to family planning has decreased total fertility rates. Religion does play a role, but it isn't really a significant role. We'll talk about that one in a bit. Life expectancy in the world is increasing mainly due to medicine and healthcare and food security around the world and sanitation levels. And then if we hit a total fertility rate of 2.1, if every country in the world had a total fertility rate of 2.1 over 50 years or so, the world would level out in terms of population. There are many countries in the world over 2.1, and there are many countries in the world under 2.1. Now let's look here. This is birth per woman by income level. This isn't a great indicator for you just because this is so small to read here. But in general, what I want you to see is that more and more women aren't having a ton of kids anymore. I mean, you have some places in the world where, I mean, it's super, super low. You have some that are still super, super high, but more and more it's super low. The world population at this point is growing slowly now than it really has been since the 1960s, and will continue to slow. Marriage rate. The later a woman gets married, the less likely they are to have kids. So you can see here, just average age of the first marriage, the less likely you are to have kids. Same thing here. Female secondary education, and then the lower the birth rates are. This is in Nigeria, where you see here that the more percentage of primary and secondary school attendance, oh wait, the total fertility rate is lower in the south than it is the north. Religion does play a role. You'll see this somewhat in general. More conservative parts of the religion are more against birth control than the more liberal parts of the religion or the more progressive types of the religion. So in general, that the religion does play a role in that, and it usually takes in the form of how much birth control is being used in the population. Catholics are one notable exception to that, where Catholics are very split on a lot of issues, but I mean, they do have uniformity on birth control, where if you are following the teachings of the Vatican, you are not using birth control. And so in general, while it does play a role, it plays a bigger role in how developed the country is or not, as seen by this chart, where you can see here of just kind of how that world works. Last one here, life expectancy. We said life expectancy is going up in the world. Afghanistan's a little skewed here because they're in war in this one. This is just the best map I could find here. But just be aware of this. And then the last one here, be aware that birth rate does significantly vary by region. And just a look here at Europe, I think the easiest one to look at here is in the UK, where Scotland's is significantly lower than the rest of the UK. What you should know from this lecture, you should know the basics of just world truths. And then here are the facts.